Welcome to this podcast from the Human Capital Institute's Talent Networks and Quality Candidates, Strategy, Technology, and Lessons from Premera's Successful Initiative. This webcast was sponsored by the Newman Group and presented by Ed Newman, President of the Newman Group, and Kristen Hill, Manager of Workforce Planning for Premera Blue Cross. In this podcast, Ed and Kristen share insight on an approach that is transforming the way companies engage quality candidates. So now I will turn it over to Ed.
So let me jump in with a little bit of my thoughts around the trends. I mean, recruiting has been evolving into what you might consider a frantic attempt to create the biggest possible funnel. There's so much information and data out there and available to us today with the web that we're trying to create this big funnel and get our recruiters to be more efficient. Filtering through that pile of information. We're looking for faster and more productive recruiters to deal with this. The automation has been there, lots of new tools trying to help the recruiters sift through this enormous amount of data. And these systems are there to try to make things easier, but there's so many features. Quite often, many of them are not used. So that brings up the concept of maybe a new role within talent acquisition. And so we've got sourcers and we've got recruiters and customer relationship managers and the like. How about having somebody on the team become a talent coach? And the talent coach's job is to work with hiring managers to develop and maintain this network of 20 to 35 people, help identify the prospects of who should be introduced into the manager's network. One of the concerns about this kind of networking might be, well, that's that old boy network, and we get concerned about diversity. Well, maybe part of my job is to make sure that there is diversity in this network that the manager is maintaining. Provide them with the tools, teach them how to use LinkedIn, maybe some sort of a CRM tool that's out there. Go to industry events with the manager, show them how to do the networking, and treat every individual that you meet as a potential candidate someday, whether it's for a job that we have open today or a job we might have open a year from now. And start building that talent-minded culture within the management community. Going about doing this, I've put together this three-step approach where you would first identify who are the managers that might be hiring critical talent, because you might not do this with everyone. You actually go in and interview people, find out what some of these there's managers who do this probably automatically anyway. Find out who's already doing it. See what kinds of things that they're doing and how you might be able to scale it across to other individuals. Look for the opportunities to add value to the network, whether it be putting out newsletters or maybe even hosting some sort of continuing education event at your office and bring folks together and have some sort of an event like that. Put together a calendar, et cetera. And then 3 is set your goals and measure. So this is just sort of a high-level 3-step. Here's how you might get started. So what I'd like to do now is shift gears and hand the reins over to Kristen, because she actually took part of this and implemented it within Premera. So give you a view of someone who's actually taken this idea and got started with it. So Kristen, I'll pass it to you, and if you could just share your story.
So what we were trying to do in our organization was to try to take advantage of the downturn and focus on building talent networks for the future. We wanted to really shift the mindset from posting and being reactive to sourcing and networking, and we wanted to really use our resources efficiently. I think many of you probably in the last year were confronted with the question from hiring managers, well, gosh, there's probably a lot of candidates out there. This job should be really easy to fill, and I think many of us know that that's not always the case. We really want to make sure we're focusing on getting the right candidates into our pipeline so we can make those quality of hires. And we wanted to look at a way to engage our managers in a different way, moving from a mindset of isn't sourcing, recruiting job to how can we work together and have managers engaged in the process and feel some ownership and accountability for the people they bring into their teams. So what we wanted to do was build a simple approach to this using many of the concepts that Ed presents, And so we built a program. We called it the Talent Network Development Program, and we piloted it successfully in 2009. So what we set out to do with our objectives was we really wanted to shift the mindset and the attitudes towards networking, keeping in mind that in 2009 we maybe didn't do as much hiring as we had done in the past. So we took that as an opportunity to really look at building some infrastructure and shifting the attitude so we could really be positioned for the future. We wanted to build networks with the capability to really produce viable candidates. Like Ed mentioned earlier, how do you build a network that really can just meet the needs of that single manager, that can be small and effective and get those right candidates into the pipeline? Our recruiters functioned as talent coaches. They provided a lot of one-on-one coaching. We created simple tools to really train our managers on how to do this. We found that not all managers are comfortable with networking, so we created a one-page tip sheet on how to use LinkedIn, how to get started, what are some tips and tricks that maybe come very naturally to us in the recruiting profession, but not so much for some of our business leaders. We engaged managers in a pilot, so a small group to start, and really looked for people that were open to trying something different. And we really figured out, tried to measure them pre and post the pilot to figure out how do we move the needle. And we did talk a lot about the exchange of value that Ed mentioned before, that it's not just a who do you know for this position today, but building that network all the time to make sure it's valuable. So what happened? It worked. It worked really well. And we used some pre and post surveys to measure had we made a difference, how we made an impact in the business. We found that managers really found that the support from their recruiter was essential. Having somebody to help them, and 100% of the people that participated with us indicated they were more comfortable with networking and planned to take action. So we found some managers, for example, had never even used LinkedIn, but they really became avid users once we showed them how. We had managers who had been hands-off in the sourcing process before, coming to recruiters and bringing leads with them to say, I'm going to have this opening, and I already have a few people in mind that I can tap into from my network, where that hadn't happened previously. We're finding that our managers have an appetite now to help with sourcing. They want to partner with us. We may provide them a short email blurb that they can send out to their network to really market their opportunities when they have them, and they're very willing to do that and to partner with us in that way. And I will turn it back over to Ed.
So final comments. Again, tools are changing. We've got to change the way that we're going to use them, start thinking a little bit differently. Value-based networks, I think, is a way to create a sustainable source of quality, get the managers to participate. And the concept here is really maybe it's a different kind of investment model for recruiting. And if you think about it, we ought to have different investment models. It shouldn't all be about lowest cost to hire, because for higher impact people, we should invest more because we're going to get a bigger return on that investment. So changing the mindset of cost proposition to value proposition helps. And maybe we apply this, because it's going to take more time, it's more investment, maybe we apply this to the critical talent, to the talent that's going to make a difference. And that talent, by the way, is not necessarily just the executives. This might be important for the frontline customer service rep for a company. So very important to be thinking about investment model here, and then, of course, measure. So if you're moving in this direction, the more you measure, we're blazing a trail here, so you need to measure, modify, and measure again.